Why is it that linseed oil is made from flaxseed? Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. A while ago I released a video on boiled linseed oil and paste wax and how to apply it, and that has started a whole pile of conversation and questions about it, and so I figured I'd do a follow-up video answering some of those questions and some of the do's and don'ts and safety with linseed oil. So first I really wanted to go into the difference between, what is the difference between this linseed oil and this linseed oil. This stuff is the stuff you can get in the store, and it works great. It is a fantastic linseed oil, but it has a chemical dryer in it to allow the polymerization to occur a little bit faster. And what polymerization is, basically as the oil dries, it starts to harden and become a polymer or a plastic. And over time it can harden and actually become a solid finish. And that is really kind of what you're looking for with the wood. The oil seeps down into the surface and then hardens down underneath, and that's fantastic. The problem is with regular linseed oil, it dries. It just takes forever. It can take months in order to slightly harden. Whereas if you put a chemical dryer in it, 24 hours later you can get a nice surface on it, and the surface can be nice and smooth. And in the course of a couple days you can get hardening all the way through it. So how do you make boiled linseed oil without putting chemical dryers into it? And most of the time the chemical dryer is just a slight irritant, and so that's why you want to wear gloves when you're working with it. Whereas this stuff is just linseed oil. And what makes it a little different? Basically what you can do is if you get the polymerization started and you start the actual work of it, then it will cure faster. And there were many ways of doing this in the past, and there were chemicals that they used to use in days gone by that were extremely dangerous. The new chemicals are very, very mild in comparison. But you can also do it through a boiling process. Now this is where things get extremely dangerous, because linseed oil has a flash point. In other words, if you bring the temperature up to a certain degree, it will suddenly combust, and flames will ensue, and that is not a happy thing. But the temperature at which it starts to solidify is just a little under that. So if you bring the temperature up to where it will start to solidify, you can start the polymerization going. But if you put it too high, then it bursts into flames. Now you can cure that by putting in a vacuum, which is a great way of doing it, but that requires a lot of equipment and ways of heating it inside of a vacuum, and most people out there aren't going to be able to do that. You can also start the process with UV rays from the sun. I've never tried it with like a UV light. I want to try that this winter. And I was going to be showing how to make it by baking it in the sun and turning it into a polymerized oil. But the winter has set on too early, and I don't really have a good way of doing that, as it's mostly overcast, and if I leave it outside, I don't like leaving it in the freezing temperature. So hopefully next summer I'm going to be doing that. Otherwise I might have to go to some place where it's warmer and show you how to do that. Now I did a short test in comparison between the homemade stuff and the store-bought stuff, and the store-bought stuff does dry a little bit faster. This in 24 hours will give you a fairly consistently hard surface, whereas this in 24 hours it may or it may not. Some of the areas were a little hardened and some weren't. If there was too much on it, it wasn't quite as hard as fast. So a chemical dryer does have that consistency and that speed that you're looking for, whereas this, I don't know if it was something in the manufacturing process or whatnot, it's just not quite as fast, but it does harden in a little bit longer. Most of the time I don't wait for this to harden to finish it though, and that is because there is oxygen inside the wood that will cure it up completely. And so I put this on, and once it's soaked in a little ways, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, I'll put a paste wax finish on top of it, and it will still cure up and seal inside the wood perfectly fine without that. So I don't have to wait for it to do that most of the time. The problem you have to wait for it is if you want to put some other finish on top of it. And when I did the kids' bench, I let this soak in, and then I wanted to use a water-based poly on top of it. Well, I had to seal that in or let it dry completely. And I didn't want to wait the 4 or 5 days for this to dry completely so that I could put a water-based seal on top of it. So I put shellac over top of this when it was like about an hour old. and that worked perfectly fine. The shellac sealed it in and then gave a surface that I could put the water-based poly on top of. Another note that came up quite a bit is a lot of people saying, oh, that won't burst into flames. There's no safety problem of wadding a rag up and throwing it into your trash can. To which I want to say, yes, there is. I have actually done that in the past, and I was going to do it out here, but I haven't had a good day with the weather. It's a little too cold to make it actually happen, but at room temperature, it does happen. Unfortunately, I don't want to burst a box of rags into fire in my house. So I'm waiting for there to be a calm day where the temperature is like around 50 degrees or higher, and I'm going to be doing it in my fire pit out back. But yes, if you wad up paper towels, if the wadding is loose enough that air can get to a lot more surfaces, the polymerization will happen and it will release heat. And if that heat builds up to the point where this can then combust, it will catch on fire. And I have seen it happen on 2 different occasions, once on purpose and once not. So yes, you do have to be careful. You can solve that by putting the rags into a jar of water or spreading them out flat on top of the concrete and just letting them cure up that way. It's not extremely dangerous. There does have to be the right scenario for it to happen, but yes, it does happen. And if you Google it on YouTube, you'll see a couple other videos of that happening. So yeah, it's a video I'd like to make at some point in the future. The other thing that came up is people really wanting to make this, and the problem is the way this is made is it's in an oxygen-free environment, basically a vacuum, and most people don't have that equipment. Also, the person who makes this has asked that I don't tell people how he does it because he doesn't want to be held liable, because if it's done improperly, flames. So yeah, don't do that. I want to show people how to do it in the sun. It is a bit tricky and it takes some time and it takes some doing. But I have to wait for the weather to cooperate here. So hopefully I'm going to be doing a video on that sometime soon, but with the way the weather is starting to go and the winter is really starting to set in, it probably won't be until this next summer. And yeah, I'm hoping to do that, but we'll see. Another interesting question that has come up is, how do you make boiled linseed oil without buying the linseed oil from the store? And the truth is, linseed oil actually comes from flax seeds. I know it's a little confusing, but you get your flaxseed oil, which is linseed oil, and you can distill that down. So when I actually do the video on making it, I want to use flaxseed oil. What I'd really love to do is find a place where I can squeeze the seeds into the oil and actually make my own flaxseed oil to make my own boiled linseed oil. And I thought that would make a very good series to do with it. But there are places where you can buy raw linseed oil, and that will cure over time. It just takes a very, very long time for it to fully polymerize. There are also places that you can buy boiled linseed oil that is natural, and I'm going to try and leave a couple links to those in the description below. I've had a lot of people asking for that. But in all honesty, this stuff actually works perfectly fine. If you wear gloves, you're going to be perfectly safe. It cures a little bit faster, which makes it a little more consistent, a little bit easier to use, and it's fantastic stuff. And I really don't have any problem with it. I actually used this on the kids' bench just because I have a gallon of it, and I didn't want to use the little bit I have left of this. So it's fantastic stuff, and don't have a problem using it. Just know you got to wear gloves. That's about it. So that's it for this week. I know this video has been a little bit different, just kind of giving a lot of information. If you like this, please let me know in the description below. If you have other questions, I know that there's going to be even more questions coming up, and I know that there's going to be a few arguments started. Oh well, that's the way things go. If you did like the video, please hit like and think about subscribing. I want to say a huge, huge thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are incredible, and wow, thank you for that, and keep it up. If you want to find out more about Patreon, you can click the link over here. If you did like this video, feel free to check out one of my others. You might find something you like there. And until next time, have a wonderful day.